Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
This Money Mentors Podcast is about helping you with your retirement questions. So if you have a question for us, reach out online anytime at matsonfinancial.com. I get the chance every week to ask you all kinds of random questions. And sometimes you don't even know what questions I'm going to ask you. And yet you always seem to have an answer. So that's impressive too. Corey, Laurel,
I think it's
very impressive.
Yeah, one of those things that Dad's been in the industry for 34. I'm losing count. 30 some years. Let's see. I know how old I am, so I think it's 34. But besides that, I've been here for over a decade. Taylor's been here for a decade. Corey and Gerald are,
8 years.
16. Yeah, they're approaching 10 years. So, between all of us and all the different families that we help or individuals that we help, there are still some unique things, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that we have collaborated on over the years. And so we know how this works. And it's great because Corey will still put a plan together. He'll still go talk with Taylor about it, or Taylor's got a plan. He's talking to Gerald about it, right? So we have multiple advisors in on these plans. We talk about having a secondary advisor, and we mean that because we want to have this holistic approach where we've already poked a lot of holes at these plans to make sure that they're flexible and meet your needs.
And this is also just every day for us. I'm meeting with clients and potential clients every day, and I don't always have a full list of every question they're going to ask me before the appointment. So we're pretty used to being asked questions we weren't expecting and answering
taking it
them.
on the fly.
On the fly. And that's the thing, you haven't been retired yourselves, but you've been through it so many times with so many clients.
We have retired many times, just not ourselves.
Exactly. You live vicariously through the Matson Financial family. But it is interesting to hear the stories here on the show over the years because being retired brings on a whole new set of challenges in life. In fact, Go Banking Rates says there are 7 in particular that come with those first 10 years of retirement as you're settling in. So I thought we'd go through this list this weekend and discuss how you help people tackle these things as they go through them for the first time, since you've seen just about everything over your years in the business here. And number 1 on their list, and I do think this is probably going to be the hardest thing for me when I finally get there, because again, you're used to getting paid on a certain schedule, right? You know that paycheck's coming in. So they say number 1 here is adjusting to that new income stream. Is that a little bit nerve-wracking for some people?
It is. I think it's weird is a good word for it for a lot of people because you're not necessarily being paid from somebody else anymore. A lot of it is you taking your own money you've been putting away. So it just feels
a liability shift almost.
It feels strange, yes.
But I think why people overcome it pretty quickly, being our clients, is because back to the mapping out of the plan, we talk about what you are making currently. And the last thing we want to do is set up a plan that says, hey, you made it to retirement, now take a pay cut. Like, you don't want to enter retirement and not do the things that you want to do. And also that's a really lifestyle, it's a hard shift. So we generally run all of our plans to say we're going to meet what income needs you currently have and still discuss it from there if there are nuances, to your critical income need or your lifestyle side. But we are not going to set you up in the beginning of retirement to say, here's your really tight budget that you can't enjoy the last 30 years of what you worked so hard for. So it's a different shift.
And so making that adjustment is number 1 here, but understanding what your numbers look like, that's why that's so important. Number 2
and
on
Social
their list.
Security, I should add in there,
oh,
right?
My
That's
goodness,
something that's not, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jennifer.
No.
But obviously that's investments, but also, when do I take Social Security? What does that look like? And it's more than just, hey, I'm taking it for myself. But once again, what are those repercussions of that decision going to do to my spouse? Should I pass? Or, those types of things. So that's also part of our income plan.
All right, good to know and good to plan for because you do have several options there. So understanding what the numbers look like factor into that decision. Now, number 2 on their list here, some of the biggest adjustments you'll have to make is perhaps downsizing. And with the housing market and everything that's happened just over the last few years on that front, I would imagine it's a little bit nerve-wracking making some of those decisions too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got clients who definitely want to talk about new builds and things as well. So working that into the plan. But a lot of times we don't see, hey, I hit retirement and now I'm downsizing. It's usually after they've lived through some retirement years that they're like, hey, we're traveling a lot and we don't want to maintain these things. Or we had different clients who become widows or widowers. And that's a discussion to say, I can't keep up on all of this maintenance of this farmhouse and all of the acreage that I have. So, do I hire somebody to do that? Or do I look at downsizing and having a condo? So we have some of those shifts in those conversations as well.
All right. So understanding your housing options, a good one to factor in because that's such a huge expense. But that leads to our next thing on the list here, is that's planning for big buys, whether, let's say that's a house, a second home, even furniture. We were talking during the break. Both of us have had to factor in HVAC systems in this past year. Both
and
of the
that's
office
not
and
fun
home.
money spent. So,
No, it's not. But, big things, big ticket things come up like that, right?
Yeah, it all comes back to when you have that plan put in place, having wiggle room, not having that set plan where you can't make any changes. I do always ask every single person when I sit down with them and go through that initial appointment, are there any lump sum purchases you may need? For example, I had a client recently who they needed some foundation work on their old farmhouse they live in. That's fine. We were planning for that, but then they found out that that would mean lifting the entire house up off the foundation and redoing it, and it turned out that knocking it down and building a new house would actually be less expensive than
so crazy, isn't it?
Fixing the foundation.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
gotta
having
do the
that wiggle room.
research.
You have to be able to adjust your plan when things come up. You have to be able to have the ability to take those lump sums. May not even be a purchase, it may be an emergency or something like that. So just having liquidity if that's needed or whatever that is to make those changes, but still have your standard monthly income coming in and not having that be hurt by it either.
Well, next on the list of the challenges that seem to come up too, and that was first 10 years of retirement, filling the days. Now, I would understand if you're 100 miles per hour during your working life, that's probably going to be a problem. But I've heard you talk about too, a lot of people do not have a problem filling up their calendars. So it goes kind of one way or the other in retirement, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
that first appointment, it's the same thing. Asking, so what are you going to do on a Wednesday afternoon when you're not working? And sometimes, you're just met with a dead stare like, oh, I
haven't thought
I don't
about
know.
it.
I don't
what
like
does that mean?
I don't want to do anything. I'm like, we're not just going to sit there. So what are you going to do? So it's just kind of.
We're going to find your hobbies. We're going to have ways for you to do things. I mean, we have clients that they ended up having like a his day, her day. I've talked about this before, but that gives their time to be like, okay, doesn't matter. Tuesdays, I know you're off doing your thing. Because that's, I think, the other challenge is if you were both working or one of you was working, one of you were home, point being you didn't spend all that time together, that you are now shifting and spending time together. So I think that's an important thing to work on, but also is managing your schedules. And going back to that, I have conversations with all of our retirees and they say, I am busier than what I was while working. And I think a lot of that too is we have a lot of family clients. And so our, those grandmas and grandpas are spending time with kids and grandkids, I should say.
Grandkids a big one that we're always hearing about.
Or, hey, I need help. I'm calling grandma. And we talk about, hey, Susie, how does next Tuesday work? Oh, Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons aren't good because I'm picking him up from school. Like, great. Noted in the file, grandma duties are on those days. So that's fun to hear.
We had quite a few clients who turn into straight daycare for their kids.
You know what? I don't blame parents, though. Hey, if grandma and grandpa can do it, you trust them and they're a little bit cheaper than
you get those awesome memories.
Yes, it's important. I love when people take on that role in retirement. That's the kind of the fun thing to see them fill their time with. But you're right, Laurel. I think a lot of people find that maybe they are overscheduled even in retirement too. But it's a good problem to have there. Another challenge, though, that does come up for a lot of retirees on the financial side of things here is balancing risk in your portfolio when you're retired. I would think that even if you're a savvy investor, you probably do worry a little bit more about what the market's going to do to you in these years.
I meet with people constantly who are still stuck on matching what the S&P 500 is doing or think that they need to do what the markets are doing, where when you put the plan together, they've saved so well that you can take a lot less risk than you think you can and still be fine. We do not want to take the full market risk and have your entire portfolio and plan be at the mercy of the markets. People always think that an advisor is going to recommend you go more risky, but I have that conversation constantly with my clients that we do not need to take the risk and match what the markets are doing in order for you to be able to retire. You need to be stress-free in retirement, not stressing out by the numbers you see on the TV every day.
Yeah, and I would say like all of our plans that we put together are really conservative when we show you the numbers as to what we are looking at obtaining. But to Corey's point, it goes back to seeing it all in writing. And it's not just this philosophy of let's talk about this and throw some stuff up on the whiteboard. And if we get you 10% every year for 10 years and you're taking a withdrawal rate of 6, yeah, that all sounds good, but is that an actual? We want to see it in black and white. We want to talk about it because there are going to be some double-digit years. There's also going to be years where the markets aren't good. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean for my portfolio? What does that mean for my income, being the client? And I think that our advising team does an amazing job at this here at Matson Financial, is balancing that risk and that conversation, because we do not have those conversations with clients that they call in and they're panicking. They're panicking about the markets. They don't know what to do. They seem to just be like, hey, markets are down. What are we doing? Are we buying in? What's that strategy? Or they're just waiting for us to talk about, here's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to buy low, sell higher. Here's how we're harvesting because markets are up.
Or we get the panic call that the markets are down, and then we remind them how they're invested, and then they're like, oh, okay.
That's right.
Oh,
thanks.
Yeah, it just takes them a couple times to get through this market cycle of being a client, and they just get it.
Well, that has to be fun to kind of experience and watch them see how that plan actually works when they get to retirement too. Now, the other thing that you talk about up front too is the next on the list here, and that's dealing with taxes. Your tax picture can change quite a bit, especially in those first 10 years of retirement.
Oh, yeah. And they're never going away. And possibly if, your plan is invested in the right way and it's growing, so is your tax bill, right? That's just the gist of it. But now what are we doing to be proactive to pay your fair share, but not more? That's important with our fiduciary advisors, and our team here is looking at all those different aspects and diversifying not only by what types of assets you have, but, different qualifications of money.
Yeah, and hopefully you've worked with somebody, you have that plan in place, and you're pretty good on taxes once you're retired. But with those clients, even in retirement, now we start doing that tax planning, like Laurel had mentioned before, for the next generation, for the people that we're going to be passing those funds on to. I just spoke to a client this morning who, he's got VA benefits, he's got pensions, he's got Social Security, his income is pretty well taken care of for him. So now we're just converting money to Roth so that when this money goes to his beneficiaries and they're forced to take it over 10 years, it's not going to be taxable to them when they're taking it. So it's
Nice.
Right?
It's
Doesn't
about,
blow up their plan.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, too, I should say is it's not just investment taxes. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but your Social Security benefits could be taxed. And if you're thinking, what? I thought I already went through that. They can be still. And also Medicare, right? There's taxation there. So there's just taxes are at you in every which way. So just make sure you have a plan to manage it all.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.